Hey, how you doing? My name is Ryan, and today I'm designing my very own custom LEGO Marvel minifigures, accessories, and builds. I'm aiming to create parts that LEGO has never made before, but are sorely missing from any Marvel collection. Now, I'm in no way an artist or designer, but I did recently have a conversation with Ben, the Design Jedi, a professional artist who makes amazing pieces for site minifigs.me. He gave me some invaluable advice that I'm certain to use in this video. So what am I designing? Well, first up is an accessory I think LEGO has really dropped the ball on design-wise, and that's Star-Lord's Walkman. While we have had some iterations of the Walkman and the tape in the past, I want to create the best version of that iconic blue Walkman with the awesome mixtape inside. So let's boot up Photoshop and get to work. This will be a 2x1 tile print, so I'll use a 100 by 200 pixel canvas on Photoshop. One of the main challenges of designing this piece is making sure that all the layers are correctly established. You have the blue tape deck layer and the tape inside the little plastic shield. I'm going to use bold lines to differentiate between these two elements, so it's not flat and has some dimension to it. I'll also utilize a subtle emboss effect on that plastic covering to make that tape deck feel more three-dimensional. Now, obviously, I don't have the rights to the word Sony Walkman, so I'll use the words music and walk to represent that part. And the Walkman design is done. I think I was pretty effective at separating the tape deck and the tape layers, but I'll have to wait until I order the pieces and have them actually printed before I make that final judgment call. But how about the next piece of design? Well, this is a fun one. This is the photo of Peter Parker and Tony Stark from Avengers Endgame. The main challenge here will be taking a composite of elements and making it look like in the similar art style of LEGO's photos. There's some great examples in the Sanctum Sanctorum where it's mostly just outlines with very little shading and very little contrast. But before I worry about any of that style, I need to lay out my elements. I'm grabbing photos of Tony and Peter Parker in minifigure form to lay into Photoshop. I'll do some black lines in the background to represent the backdrop, as well as a Stark logo kind of cut off at the top. And now that my elements are laid out in this weird sort of digital composite, now I need to make them look like the LEGO style of a photo. So what I'll do is I'll lower the saturation immensely, remove a lot of the contrast, and draw the outlines of each individual character, and make those pop the most as opposed to what's inside the outlines. I'll also go in and paint over the hair to remove any of the shadows and highlights so it looks like almost one flat color. After a bit of tweaking and removing every shadow and highlight I can see, I'm left with a photo that looks pretty close to LEGO's design aesthetic of photos. I'm honestly very happy with how this design turned out, but the next one will be the hardest one yet because it's the smallest design. On a 1x1 round tile print, it's Captain Marvel's pager. Now this pager has a lot of detail, and I have to figure out just how much I can fit onto the smallest possible piece I can print on. To achieve this print, first I need to just outline all the elements of the pager on Photoshop. And now that I have every line and detail drawn out, I need to remove about 80% of them. Again, this is a very small print, and it sometimes helps to take your design and zoom out as far as you can, almost to the exact same size of the piece you're printing on, to get a sense of what it looks like when it's that small. So I think my design is done, and I'll be very curious how this turns out on that print, because not only is it very small, but it's also on a black 1x1 tile. It's black, so it's going to be dark as a backdrop. So hopefully I added enough color contrast and enough light colors to print over top of black and have it be visible. Up next, I'm designing a character that is sorely overdue for an upgrade, and that's Modoc. With the Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania set being kind of a letdown, I want to create my own version of Darren Cross as Modoc, and to do that, I need to create 3 pieces. First, a small panel for his EKG meter, which is really easy, just a black circle, gold outline, and a small heartbeat pattern with a gradient going from green to white to make that color shift look natural. But the other two pieces are a bit more complicated. First, I want to create that angry looking gold mask, and I'm mostly freehanding this design. That's a bit difficult to do for a highly symmetrical piece like this. So I really want to be patient as I'm adding each individual line to make sure it's even on each side and looks perfect. I experimented with a couple of glow effects on Modoc's eyes to make sure it felt like LEGO's design aesthetic. But in the end, I just painted on the glow myself rather than use a pre-built effect. I'm also adding a slight emboss effect to all of the detail lines to make them pop a bit more and make it feel like this mask was built from sections rather than just painted on. After a bit of work, I think this mask looks really good, but what about the face underneath the mask? How about that goofy Darren smile? I'm using an actual minifigure smile as the base for my design, but I'm stretching out just a little bit more than usual to make it look like a wider face. Now, one of the key pieces of advice that Ben gave me for minifigures is eyebrows, eyebrows, eyebrows. So I'm making sure that these eyebrows look picture perfect on this print. I'll also add a bit of crow's feet under the eyes and some wrinkles under the chin, again to give it that stretched out effect. This face makes me smile, it's goofy, and I love it. But there's one key component to both the face and the mask that I'm missing that I didn't mention earlier, and that is the parts I'm printing them on. Now, I'm using minifigs.me's custom design tile printing service, and they only have a certain selection of pieces to choose from. Now granted, all their parts are official LEGO pieces, so my designs will look and feel really professional here, but I am limited to the parts they offer to print on, none of which are 4x3 tile prints. So for the face, I need to split my design in half to go on two 2x3 white tile prints, and for the mask, I'm printing on a 2x4 yellow and a 1x4 yellow underneath that. So I'll have to split my mask accordingly, with majority of the face on top and just a sliver of the mouth on the bottom. Shouldn't be that difficult, but I want to make sure I get my math right here, or my print won't align and won't look right. And oh yeah, I also need to build my own Modoc figure in studio. I'll use the Modoc featured in the Avengers helicarrier set as the base, but my Modoc will look a little bit different, a little bit more compact, and will fit perfectly with either the face print or the mask print. And while my custom Modoc has the most amount of components, there's still one more piece that I want to print, and that's a custom minifigure. And which figure? Well, it's one that I think LEGO will never make, but one that I really want to have on my Marvel board. Kevin Feige. This one took me a while to conceptualize because Kevin Feige mostly just wears suits and shirts. It's kind of hard to make a recognizable character using only civilian clothing, but I think what I might do is I'll have him wear a dark gray suit, but have the Marvel Studios More Than a Fan t-shirt underneath that to make it distinctly Kevin Feige. One of the challenges is balancing out how much of the More Than a Fan logo to show, not only for copyright purposes, but it can't be so small that it fits in between the suit jacket lapel because then it'd be illegible, but it also can't be too big because it won't be recognizable then. So I need to find the right balance. Also, I'm changing the Marvel Studios to Brick Studios to avoid copyright. As for the face, legs, and hair, I'm using the face of this shield agent because it looks just perfect. I'm using the hat of this robot from the Lego movie because it's a great black cap with printing on it, and the legs I'm using custom dark jeans from minifigs.me. And for Kevin Feige's accessory, I'd love to give him a 2x3 tile version of Avengers issue 1. While a Lego version of this iconic piece of art already exists, the main challenge here is getting rid of all of that detail, all that shading, all of those action lines, because this will be a very small print, so I need to make sure that all of it looks legible. And after about an hour and a half of going in and painting out all of these detail by hand, I think I have a print that'll work. So now I'll upload all of these designs to minifigs.me and wait for the final pieces to arrive in the mail. My custom LEGO Marvel accessories have arrived. Let's see what they look like. We'll start up first with Star-Lord's Walkman, and I love how this turned out. I love the color, I love the amount of detail, I think it looks picturesque, as perfect as I want it to be. This is what I think Star-Lord's Walkman should look like in LEGO form. But I don't just want my opinion. One of Ben's notes in my talk with him was to always get feedback from fellow designers, so let's see what he thinks of my Star-Lord's Walkman.
Really nice design. Only thing I can really think of if I was making it would be to try and make a bit more room for the tape window and make it a more prominent piece of the design.
That's a fair point. I could have made the proportions different so that the tape's a bit bigger relative to the tape deck, but I'm glad he likes my design. That's honestly kind of flattering. How about the photo though? This photo print, I'm pretty happy with as well. It looks a bit washed out compared to my digital mock-up of it, but let's see what Ben thinks.
Again, this has printed nicely for the detail in it. I think to achieve a better print, I would up the contrast between the gray and other colors.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I probably went too far in removing too much contrast. Had I made the blacks a bit darker and the whites a bit brighter, it might have looked better on a tiny print. But how about the one I'm dreading the most, Captain Marvel's pager? You know, I think my worries were a bit overdone. This looks okay, better than I expected for sure. There certainly is a bit of muddiness to it, as again, this is a tiny print with a lot of detail. So, what does Ben think?
This is printed as well as I'd expect with the amount of detail onto such a small tile. You could keep simplifying the lower part of the design to get it a bit clearer, however, it is reaching the limit of how small you can go while keeping some level of detail.
Yeah, I agree. There are a couple areas I could have removed even more detail, removed even more of the shading. Perhaps I might go back on this design and give it another pass to see if I can get it a little bit better. But how about Modoc? How'd I do there? I am incredibly happy with this Modoc. The build looks phenomenal. The front chest piece looks quite nice. I was a touch worried about the division between the pieces on the face, both the mask and the head, as you know, there's a seam in between them. But you know what? It looks better than I thought it would be. I do think the face mask looks better in these two pieces as opposed to the face where there's a seam right down the middle, but I'd love to hear what Ben thinks of my design here.
My only comment here is to try making the wrinkle lines a bit thicker for a better print. Other than that, really good. This is how I would have approached this kind of design. I think the only change I could suggest is to make this gap a bit thicker. Looks great, though. From your picture, it looks like this has come out really well. I don't think there's anything I'd make changes to for this tile. All the lines look nicely printed, and it's got the background gradient printed nicely.
I am almost honored how much he likes my designs. Yeah, I could have made the wrinkles a bit thicker on Darren's face, but he seems to really enjoy every element of my design here, and that's just awesome to hear. I'm glad this Modoc has some love and finally has a really good LEGO version of it. But you know who else is sorely lacking LEGO representation? Kevin Feige. How did my minifigure turn out? This piece makes me smile. This is exactly what I want a LEGO Kevin Feige to look like, both in feel, in detail, in texture. I love this. I love every element of this. This is going on my Marvel display board, right above Stan Lee. But let's hear what Ben has to say.
As a suit design, I think this is fine, to be honest. It's a bit of an awkward balance when you're trying to get legible text on the shirt and still have a normal-looking open jacket. If you want the text to be more visible, I'd probably open the jacket a bit more. Maybe oversize the brick studio part as well if you'd like it to be more prominent.
Yeah, that's some pretty good feedback. I certainly could have opened the suit jacket a bit more to give myself a larger canvas to play with the logo. But how about the Avengers tile accessory? How did that turn out? I think I kind of underestimated how much detail I needed to remove here. I probably could remove the entire corner there to make Avengers a lot larger and paint out even more detail on the Avengers characters than I initially did. But let's hear what Ben has to say.
This is printed about as well as you can hope for something this detailed onto a tile. The only thing you can do to achieve a better print, really, is if you went into the background characters and simplified some of the details and thickened up some of the outlines. However, for this level of detail, it looks like a good print.
Sounds like he agrees. And you know, between interviewing Ben and going through the process of making my own designs and getting feedback on those designs, I really am beginning to appreciate, even more so than before, the artwork that goes into LEGO, both on the official site and from these custom creators like minifigs.me. I had a blast making my own custom LEGO Marvel minifigures, designs, and builds, and hopefully with Ben's feedback, I can go back to the drawing board on some of the designs and create even better, more refined pieces. But I'd love to hear what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section down below what part or minifigure should I design next. And as always, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching.